coronavirus, how the coronavirus started, where it started at. You understand? I'm not going to get too detailed into it, but my whole premise is about where we fall at in our society, and I'm going to show how other nations don't fall into the customs and culture of our oppressor, but they receive everything that they need and want. You understand? I'm gonna show. We're gonna talk about that today. I'm not gonna get too much into the details of this coronavirus, but I want to show a pattern. That's what I want to do. I want to show a pattern. You understand what I'm saying? Hey, Salakia, sir. So, like I said, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to get too deep into the history of the coronavirus. We're going to talk about it a little bit, but I just want to show a pattern of how all of the other nations, they receive what they want to receive, but they believe their beliefs. They have their own customs and cultures that they follow. They don't follow the customs and cultures of the Americas, but they get everything they need and they want from the Americas. We're going to show that. And we are the only nation of people that fall into the customs and cultures of America, and thus we don't receive the things that we need or we feel like we should have. Okay? This first scripture, Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 48. Salakia, can we start at 47? My bad. Salakia, sir. We start at 47.
The book of Deuteronomy 28 and verse 47. Because thou servest not the Most High thy power with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Most High shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee.
You hear that? It says, because thou servest not the Lord thy Shalakia, because thou servest not Yahweh thy power with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. No, Salakia, I'm not a drinker, so this is not me. This is not me. I'm not a drinker, son. If you'd have had a Pepsi, I'd have been good, but I appreciate the thought, though. But listen, it says, because thou servest not Yahweh, because thou servest not Yahweh thy power with joyfulness. You understand? We the only nation of people who don't serve our power with joyfulness. We serve our slave master. We serve our oppressor with joyfulness, even in our oppressor destroying us. We serve our oppressor in joyfulness. You understand what I'm saying? With the gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. You understand? If we would serve the Most High with an abundance for all things, we would be on top. But this is why we are destroyed. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Yahweh shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst. And this is how we are serving our oppressor today. We are serving our oppressor in hunger and in thirst. You understand what I'm saying? Now I'm a hold this scripture right here, and I want to jump to this scripture right here. Now, like I said, I'm gonna get into this. Is basically we talking about these Asians. or Moabites and Ammonites. All of them are grouped into one. These are Moabites and Ammonites. These are the Asians, okay? Listen, it says, we all know the first case of coronavirus hit the U.S. in January of 2020, right? January of 2020, the U.S. hit. And I'm going to read this script, this paragraph right here. It says on January 30th, it says on the 30th of January 2020, Dr. Tedros, a doctor from the World Health Organization, Director General, declared the novel coronavirus outbreak a public health emergency of international concern, whose highest level of alarm at the time were the 98 cases and no deaths in 18 countries outside China. Basically, this disease come from the Asians, right? This was a disease. It stricken us. It's stricken almost every nation around the earth, coming from the Asians, right? So, at one point in time, America had 1/4 of all the deaths and all the cases of this coronavirus. It says on March 11, 2020, the rapid increase in number of cases outside China led to the World Health Organization Director General to announce that the outbreak could be characterized as a pandemic. By then, more than 118,000 cases have been reported in 114 countries, and 4,291 deaths have been recorded. By mid-March 2020, the European region had become the epicenter of the epidemic. That's when the Italians and the British and all of them were dying and falling out and everything, in Switzerland and all of that. They were all dying from this coronavirus, a virus that comes from the U.S. So in connection with that, right? In connection with that, you came up, what happened was, all of a sudden you started having Asian hate crime going on, okay? So the Asian hate crime was an issue, and it was a big issue to the point that there was an outcry to stop Asian hate. And who was at the forefront of the Stop Asian Hate? So-called African American, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and natives. We always fight for every nation, but no nation fights for us. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So, in all of this Asian hate, we fall victim to everything that all of the other nations do to us, but the other nations never stand up and fight for us for anything, through the civil rights, through nothing. You understand what I'm saying? Think about this too, right? When the thing happened with George Floyd, who was out there with us? The Asians were out there with us, but why were they out there with us? Because of the crime that was going on against them. They tried to link their thing with us, just like they did with what was the thing that they benefited off of? What was the thing that they benefited off of? They made up all of those laws, and then the Asians ended up coming in and scooping up everything, taking over everything. You know, that's when we lost all our stores and all of that. Anyway, they were in there with the George Floyd thing because they were being ridiculed, mocked, and Asian hate and beat up and all of that type of stuff. I think, what was it, about 7 or 8 Asians got beat up? 7 or 8 Asians got beat up, and then they were out there marching about that, right? Well, after the George Floyd thing, a whole lot of other people died after that, right? How many Asians came out for that? You understand? Because they had an ulterior motive. You understand? Listen, every nation rises up against us and uses us. Every nation benefits off of us. We are the poster child for anything negative that happens that people need a stand-up guy for. You understand what I'm saying? And I wanted to read that scripture. Give me a sec.
verse 29. We have heard the pride of Moab.
It says, we have heard the pride of Moab, and we know the Chinese can be a proud people. They are a proud people. The Asians, period, are proud people. You understand what I'm saying? They proud about their culture. They proud about their customs. They proud about being over top of us. You understand what I'm saying? They walk, exactly. They walk in. I remember they showed an Asian dude on TV one time with a bandana on his head, walking around like he ran the neighborhood. You understand what I'm saying? They are a proud people. You understand? They are disgusting people, but they have their customs. They have their culture. You understand? They have the backing of their people. This is what makes them proud. You understand? When your people stand up and stand behind you, you should be proud. But instead of them being proud, we should be the proud ones. You understand? Go ahead.
He is exceedingly proud.
He is exceedingly proud. He is proud above being proud. You understand? Almost the arrogant proud. You understand? And we know those Asians can be arrogant bastards. You understand what I'm saying? Because they know we need them, because they own everything in our neighborhoods. We got to come to them when it's time to eat. You understand? We got to come to them when it's time to buy. They don't have to come to us. That's why they so proud. That's why they exceedingly proud, because we have to come to them, but they don't have to come to us. You understand? Go ahead.
His loftiness.
Go ahead.
And his arrogancy.
What we was just talking about, his loftiness and his arrogancy. He is arrogant because he knows he has a foothold over us. You understand what I'm saying? He knows he has the backing of the other nations that puts him in a position to be over us. You understand? We have the power to overcome, but we don't understand. You understand? The Most High tells us, this is the reason why he says gather together. We got to gather together and be on one accord. This is the reason why Commanding General Yohana tells all of the Hebrews to come back under this Isupkbmore. We have to be on one accord. But when we are in discourse, when we are into everything but the thing that we should be in to bring us together, this is the reason why the other nations have that arrogancy and that loftiness. You understand? Because they know they have that power over us, because we are not together. Go ahead.
And his pride and his haughtiness of his heart.
And his pride and his haughtiness of his heart. You understand? All of that is his mind is so set that he knows he can beat up women in stores, our sisters in stores. And he knows he can put up a 50% sign off, and all of the protesting going to stop. You understand what I'm saying? He knows what he can do. That's the haughtiness and the proudness in his heart. You understand? He knows the angles that he has over us. You understand? He knows what he can do to get over on us. You understand what I'm saying? This is the reason why the Most High tells us not to marry with the heathen nations, not to intermingle, not to marry into these other nations. You understand? Because once we intermingle and once we marry into these other nations, we begin to follow these other nations. You understand what I'm saying? I want to get into this article right here. Listen to this. It says, go ahead, finish.
I know his wrath, saith the Most High, but it shall not be so. His lies shall not so affect.
Go ahead.
Therefore will I howl for Moab, and I will cry out for all Moab. Mine heart shall mourn for the men of Keresh.
Right, to howl is to scream out. He said he's going to scream out for Moab. Therefore I will howl, I will scream out for Moab, and I will cry out for all Moab. mine heart shall mourn for the men of
which is a city, which was a city in Asia at that time.
Right.
So the Lord is saying that He will cry out for Moab, meaning destroy it.
Right.
And there's a lot of other verses that say that we will get that later.
Right, but He's going to cry out for Moab because He's going to destroy Moab. You understand? The Most High understands and sees everything that Moab or our Moab, Ammon, or the so-called Asian is doing to his people. You understand? Just like the other nations. You understand? They use our people to get what they need. You understand? They'll march with you for a minute to get the rights that they need, to get bills and everything passed, and to get what they want. They'll intermingle with you to get you to buy from them. You understand what I'm saying? Which is what we do. You understand? They know the power that they have. The Most High sees all, and this is the reason why He's going to howl out for Moab, because He is going to destroy these people. Destruction is only a shot away. You understand what I'm saying? Destruction is only a shot away. And I want to read this article right here. It says COVID hate crime. You got anything else on that? That was it? That was it, right?
Yeah, we get some more.
COVID hate crimes against Asian Americans on the rise. Now listen, that's a heck of a title right there, because of COVID hate crimes against Asian Americans is on the rise. But if you remember, a little bit after that COVID hate crime started, then what they started to do was try to twist it and put it on black people and said black people were spreading. You understand? And then what it began to be was black people started to be ridiculed for the COVID, and they tried to put the blame for the COVID on black people. You understand what I'm saying? It says hate is a
In
virus.
China.
In China. Yes, in China. Stop Asian hate is a virus. Stop Asian hate. But I would like to see Asians stop hating so-called blacks, Hispanics, and natives. You understand? That's the one thing that we don't talk about, is the Asian hate against us. You understand? They talk about Asian hate, but they don't talk about the Asian hate against us. Now listen to this. It says an elderly Thai immigrant dies after being shoved to the ground. A Filipino American is slashed in the face with a box cutter. A Chinese woman is slapped and then set on fire. 8 people are killed in a shooting rampage across 3 Asian spas in one night. Now, let's get this straight, right? Okay. Man dies, box cutter, Chinese woman slapped, right? And this is where the propaganda comes in right here. It says 8 people are killed in a shooting rampage across an Asian spa. They never tell you that that was a sex trafficking spot, and the dude had problems. This had nothing to do with Asian hate. You understand what I'm saying? But these are the vices that they use to lull us in, to intermingle and to marry with their causes. You understand? The Most High doesn't only mean not to marry them in marriage, but marrying their causes. You understand? Marrying into what they fighting for. What they fight for is not what we fight for. You understand what I'm saying? So now, that's the I'm gonna finish reading this article. These are just examples of recent violent attacks on Asian Americans, part of a surge in abuse since the start of the pandemic a year ago. Lo and behold, that's just about all of the Asian hate that happened right there. You understand what I'm saying? Where we got hundreds of years of them hating us. We got hundreds of years of every nation on this planet hating us. You understand? But where is the stop the African American hate, or stop the hate of the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and natives? When do we get that? What about the natives that are on those reservations that are being murdered? The women are being raped and left out in the field and found months later. You understand? What about the Hispanics on the border that are in cages and dog cages? What about the ones that are being murdered out there in the desert? You understand? What about the so-called blacks that's being murdered by police every day? What about the so-called blacks that are being locked up and prosecuted on charges that are felonious? You understand? When are we going to stop that hate? When are we going to fight for us and stop fighting for other people? You understand what I'm saying? It says, from being spat on and verbally harassed, we lived through over 450 years of that here in the Americas. You understand? Being spat on, that's normal. Verbally harassed, that's regular. In incidents of physical assault, don't our brothers see that every day? We see that from police every day. We see that from Becky's and Karen's every day. You understand? And Bob's too now. You understand? And it says have been thousands of reported cases in recent months. I ain't no thousands of cases. Advocates and activists. Think about it. Listen to this. It says advocates and activists. Who are the advocates and activists? It's us. We advocating and activists. We are the activists. Have you ever, what activists, what Asian activists do you know that's out there? What Asian activists come out there with signs and picketing and walking in like that? That's us. You understand? They don't do that. They get us to do that for them. And that's why we need to come out of them. The scriptures say, come out of her, my people. We have to come out of doing everything for other nations and do for our own. You understand? It says, advocates and activists say these are hate crimes and often linked to rhetoric that blames Asian people. Listen to it. It says blame Asian people. It don't say blames us. It says blames Asian people for the spread of the COVID-19. Well, I mean, who else? Who else is spreading it? Where did it come from? You understand? I mean, let's call a spade a spade, right? That's where it comes from. You understand? And all of a sudden now, dogs eating and all of the cats and the bats and the fetal soup and all of that. You understand what I'm saying? It was only a matter of time before some kind of disease was gonna come out from that. You understand? I got videos and movies showing them stripping snakes down and eating snakes, eating dogs and puppies. You understand what I'm saying? This is a part of their culture. You understand? And then we want to sit up in their stores and buy their food from them, not knowing what's in it or where it come from. It shows so many videos of them having the dogs, bringing the dogs in the back door. You understand what I'm saying? Chopping them up, feeding them to our people. These people have no sympathy or no love for our people, but we continually show these people love and all kinds of sympathy like that. You understand what I'm saying? Let's I'm gonna go to this Bible thing right here. Right? Now, after all of that, in less than a year, just over a year, Salaki, just over a year after all of that happens, what do they get? They get a crime bill passed. You understand what I'm saying? We've been fighting for crime bills for how long? Since 1866, since we've been emancipated. You understand what I'm saying? Since we've been so-called free. You understand? We've been fighting for crime bills since the 50s and the 60s. You understand what I'm saying? They destroyed all of Black Wall Street. They destroyed everything in South Carolina. They destroyed everything in Thaddeus, South Carolina. They destroyed all of the little black cities all around this country, right? We've been fighting for crime bills since the beginning. And in just over a year, they get a crime bill passed. How is that? How is that? How did they get a crime bill passed? Because us, as a loving nation, stands up for all nations. You understand what I'm saying? We stand up for all nations. So after a year and a half, I'm gonna give them a year and a half. They got a crime bill passed that it's against the law to do anything, period. Because even if an Asian say something to you and you fight on them or something like that, it's gonna be considered a hate crime. You understand what I'm saying? Just like the so-called Jewish man. Anything that you do against the so-called Jewish man, they're gonna call it anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic? That's what it's called, right? Anti-Semitic. You understand what I'm saying? So now, again, you've been dropped down the rungs of the ladder. We took another step backwards. You understand what I'm saying? They took another step up on our shoulder. They got a crime bill passed. Let's read this. And listen to this. It says, following overwhelming support from both chambers of Congress, President Biden signed legislation Thursday that addresses hate crimes throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, with particular emphasis on the increased violence against Asian Americans. What's that? I gotta get a scripture. Where's my 83, Psalms 83. You can start at 1. You can start at 1.
Psalms 83 and 1.
So you can start there. You want to start at 2? Start at 2 then.
Book of Psalms 83 and verse 2. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult.
For lo, thine enemies make a tumult. What's a tumult? It's a tumultuous noise. It's a raising up of noise. It's a ruckus. You understand? As soon as we ask for anything, or as soon as we stand up for anything, the nations make a tumult. They make a ruckus against anything that we ask. You understand? We need better jobs. We need our own businesses, things like that. They make all kinds of noises against that. You understand what I'm saying? They make a tumult against anything that we do. They stand against everything that we do to try to advance our people. You understand? They stand against us teaching our own people. You understand? Or speaking the truth against our own people. Speaking the truth to our own people. You understand? Not against our own people, but speaking the truth to our people. You understand? Telling our people what's going on and what these people are doing to us. You understand? Go ahead.
And they that hate thee have lifted up the head.
And they that hate thee have lifted up the head. You understand what I'm saying? They have awakened a beast. You understand? They have lifted up the head. Go ahead.
They have taken crafty counsel against thy people.
They have taken crafty counsel against thy people. And this is what the nations do against us. You understand? They take crafty counsel against our people. You understand? They make laws. You understand? They make all kinds of laws that hinder us, that stop us from getting ahead. You understand? This is why they have that World Council. What is that called? When all the nations, the United Nations. The United Nations get together and they decide what laws or what they want to do to continually control us, or how they want to continually make money off of us. Listen, all of those nations that's in that council together, right? None of those nations like each other. You understand what I'm saying? None of those nations have any kind of love for each other, but they have one thing in common. They all benefit off of us. You understand what I'm saying? They all benefit off of us. And this is the reason why they sit in those councils and they take crafty counsel against us, against thy people. Go ahead.
And consulted against thy hidden ones.
And consulted against thy hidden ones. Continue.
They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation.
He said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation. How do you cut a people off from being a nation? How do you cut a people off from being a nation? Tell them that they're Christian. Tell them that they Muslim. You understand? Tell them that they from Egypt, they Egyptian. You understand? You get them to believe everything that is not the truth. That's propaganda. You understand what I'm saying? You tell them everything. That's why our people are that's why our people are everywhere. You tell them that they Democrat. You tell them that they Republican. You separate these people. You understand? Because the one thing with us is, if we are one thing and you something else, we are totally different people and we can't come together. You understand what I'm saying? It says, they have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation. And the one thing that they don't want us to know is that we are Israel. You understand? This is the reason why they got the so-called Jewish man in Israel now. Our people look at them and say, oh, those are the Jews. They are the real Jew. You understand? Because now they got it in our mind that we are not the Jew. We don't know who we are. And because we don't know who we are, we think we African American. You understand? We think we everything but what the Most High made us to be. Go ahead.
That the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance.
That the name of Israel will be no more in remembrance. The name of Israel will not be connected with the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and natives. You understand what I'm saying? The name of Israel will not be connected. It will be no more in remembrance. When you looking at Israel, you thinking about them hook nose. Can you say that? Salaki, sir? You say that? So-called Jewish man. Yeah. So-called Jewish man. You understand what I'm saying? When you hear Israel, that's who you think of. When we hear Israel, that's who our people think of. It's the so-called Jewish man. You know what I mean? Go ahead.
For they have consulted together with one consent.
They have consulted together with one consent. Like I said, they don't get along, but they will consult together with one consent. Go ahead.
They are confederate against thee.
They are confederate against us. You understand what I'm saying? They come together to be against us. You understand what I'm saying? They will do everything in their power to be against us, to not let us be who the Most High created us to be. You understand? They will do everything in their power to keep us on the bottom, to keep feeding off of us. All of the other nations at one time or another fed off of us. They made their empires off of us. You understand? All the way through, from Babylon all the way to the so-called Americas. You understand?
The tabernacles of Edom.
The tabernacles of Edom. Who is Edom? Who is Edom? Edom is the so-called our oppressor. You understand? That's who Edom is. Go ahead.
And the Ishmaelites.
And the Ishmaelites. Who are the Ishmaelites? That's the people in your neighborhood selling you beer and wine and liquor. You understand what I'm saying? That's the real Muslim. You understand what I'm saying? Our people think we Muslim, but we are not Muslim. That's the so-called Muslims. That's the Arabs. Go ahead.
And Moab and the Hagarenes.
And Moab. Who is Moab? Moab is who we was talking about earlier. The Chinese is Moab. You understand? The ones that's selling you the 4 wings and fried rice. You understand what I'm saying? Go ahead. And the Hagarenes. Who are the Hagarenes? Those are the Africans. If I'm not mistaken. No. Hagarenes, Africans, right? Okay. Go ahead.
Gabal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre.
Exploitation. That's the, is that the European? Who's Exploitation? The Arabs? Okay. And Ammon is the Japanese. You understand? And Amalek, who is Amalek? Amalek is the so-called Jewish man. You understand? And the Philistines, which is the Africans again, right? With the inhabitants of Tyre, which is the Africans too. You understand what I'm saying? All these nations come together to be against us. You understand? And even though these nations don't get along and they don't like each other, they come together long enough to keep us divided and to keep us broken up so that Israel will be no more in remembrance. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm going to get back to this article. It says, at an event in the East Room of the White House, Biden thanked lawmakers for coming together to pass the legislation. He said, standing against hatred and racism, which he called the ugly poison that has long haunted and plagued our nation, is what brings Americans together. Now think about this, right? They're saying, he said, standing against hatred and racism. We've been on the butt end of hatred and racism since we've been here. You understand? All the way up, even through this bill he passed, we've been on the ugly end of it. You understand? But it's ugly when it comes to the Asians or another nation of people. You understand? It's not ugly when it comes to us. You understand? And a lot of times we have to understand too that these people don't consider us them. You understand? They don't consider us included in their laws. You understand? Every law that they created was created to disable us. You understand? Even with this right here, this was a smack in the face. This was a slap in the face. You understand? But we shouldn't be surprised. Look at who's running the country. A beast. You understand what I'm saying? It says, my message to all of those who are hurting is, we see you, and the Congress has said, we see you, and we are committed to stop hatred and the bias, he said. You understand? Talking about Joe Biden. What the heck is this? But anyway. Listen, all these laws that they passing are for them. You understand what I'm saying? It has nothing to do with age, with us. You understand? And everything that they do for any other nation is for that nation. We can never get hate laws passed for us. They pass hate laws for homosexuals, transgenders, and all of these rainbow people, LGBTQ, and all of that. You understand what I'm saying? So we can never get anything passed like that. You understand what I'm saying? Because of who we are. He can't give us a leg up. You understand? We are destroyed people because we go out and we fight for every nation but our own nation. You understand what I'm saying? And then on top of that, they turn right around, and what did they do? They gave them a law against Asian hate and turned around, and now they have Asian American History Month, right? It was already started in a couple of other countries in Canada, but next year, in May of 2022, it's supposed to be officially started in the America. So they give our people a June 19th, and we act like Juneteenth, and we act like we hit the lottery, right? We act like we hit the lottery. But these people, they get a bill passed. The same hate bill that we've been trying to get passed since the 50s. in a year and a half, these people get a hate bill passed, and they get a month of Asian history. You understand? Asian History Month. It says Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. You understand what I'm saying? And for the whole month, you learn nothing but about what happens in May. What's the holiday in May? What holiday is in May? That's Memorial Day. That's at the end of the month, though. But that's at the end of the month, right? So you get to focus on Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, the whole month. You understand? They gave them a month, and then they gave them a month in the springtime, where you can get out and do stuff. They gave us Black History Month. What? February was the coldest time of the year. Can't really get out and do nothing. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying that we proud about it. You understand what I'm saying? But they do all of this in a year and a half. They give them all of this in a year and a half. And then and we still haven't received anything like that. You understand what I'm saying? We haven't received anything like that. Listen to this, right? This is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. You understand what I'm saying? Here's a period for the duration of the month of May for recognizing the contributions and influences of Asian Americans and Pacific Islander Americans to the history, culture, and achievements of the United States. What achievements and what have they done? You understand? Think about it, right? Who built America? America was built off the backs of slaves, but guess what they're gonna say? Because they dug a couple of tunnels in the side of a hill, oh, that was enough. You understand? Because in Pearl Harbor, for a couple of weeks, they were put into concentration camps. We didn't say that they were beat to death, or they, you know what I mean, or they were malnutrition or not fed or anything like that, but they got detained for a few weeks. You understand? Asian American History Month. They were not being murdered on the street. They were not being shot and killed. They were not being hung in trees. You understand what I'm saying? They were not being slaughtered in droves. You understand what I'm saying? But they say the contributions. What contributions? Let's see the contributions, all right? Let's see the contributions. What did they contribute? Can't even find it. What did they contribute? It says the month of May was chosen because it commemorates the migration of the first immigrants from Japan. First immigrants from Japan to the United States on May 7th, 1843. And to celebrate the completion of the transcontinental railroad by over 200,000 Asian immigrants on May 10th, 1869. However, the first Asian immigrants arrived in the U.S. in 1587, when Filipinos first began migrating to California. Immigrants continued to come from the Asian continent and the Pacific Islands through 1920, when the first Samoans were documented in Hawaii. So, because they immigrated here, right? Because they immigrated and helped to lay a railroad line. You understand? This is the reason why we have to, because they contributed to American history. You understand? In a positive fashion, and as they say. You understand what I'm saying? This is the reason why they get an Asian American History Month. Because they contributed in a positive way to American history. Because they migrated, they said because they completed the migration into the Americas and helped build a railway. This is the reason why they have Asian American History Month. You understand what I'm saying? Listen, we just read that right there. You know what I mean? You give them an Asian American History Month because they completed a migration and helped build a railroad line. So they laid some railroad and then they dug holes through some hills. Well, let me ask a question. Who built the rest of America? Our people did. You understand what I'm saying? Our people did. And we still can't get a hate crime bill. You understand? And we still being murdered in these streets. I don't care how many Asians died last year from that Asian hate crime. It will never hold a candle or hold a light to the millions upon millions of so-called blacks, Hispanics, and natives that died just in the transatlantic slave trade alone. You understand what I'm saying? And they gave them a whole heritage month. Haki Month was because it commemorates the migration of the first immigrants from Japan to the United States in 1843, and to celebrate the completion of the it says, and to celebrate the completion. So if it's celebrating the completion, who started it? The so-called blacks, Hispanics, and natives started it, but because they were there for the completion of the transcontinental railroad by over 20,000 Asian immigrants on May 10th, 1869. And guess what they did? They don't tell you in there that they had a strike. The Asians laid a strike, and guess who they hired in place of the Asians? The so-called Irishmen. I read that last week. And the Asians, they had a strike on this railroad line, and they hired the Irishmen to come in behind them. And then when the Irishmen had their strike, guess who they brought in? They brought us in. You understand what I'm saying? So they talking about to commemorate the completion of that. You understand? Now, I want to get to something a little bit more important right here. This is the beast right here. This is the beast of it all right here. And with that, I wanna go to that where was I at? Hold up. All right, that was that. This is the bill passed. This right here. This is in Illinois, right? Illinois just passed a bill. Illinois just passed a bill. And they're the first state requiring teaching Asian American history in public schools. Right? This is mandatory. That you must teach Asian American history in Illinois school. That's Chicago and all of those other cities in Illinois. All right, I'm gonna read this anyway. In the wake of increase of anti-Asian violence during the coronavirus pandemic, Illinois on Friday became the first state to require Asian American history to be taught in public schools. Under the measure, Governor J.B. Pritzker, and it's important that you remember that name, J.B. Pritzker, signed into law Friday. Every public elementary and high school in the state will be required to include a unit on the history of Asian American Pacific Islanders, including their history in Illinois and the Midwest. The requirements begin during the 2022-23 school year, which means next year. This is a requirement. You have to learn this. You understand what I'm saying? This is a law that has just been passed in Illinois. You understand? In the Midwest. And it's going to be a requirement through the Midwest. And if it kicks off right in the Midwest, then it's going to come and it's going to spread throughout the states. That means every state in the United States will be required to have Asian American history. Go ahead.
I was just looking up the percentage by race.
Right.
In Chicago.
Right. Listen. That's funny. You understand what I'm saying? That's funny, because I know where you're going with it.
That's on the screen, man.
Okay.
You got 39.7% so-called African Americans.
Say that number again.
39.7%.
39.7%. You might as well say 40%. Go ahead.
And you got 45.2% that are Hispanic.
45.2%. Go ahead.
And 9.2% that are white. This is within the city.
In the city. Right.
And with Asian, you got 0.4%.
0.4%. They don't even matter. Right? So you come to a city that is predominantly the 12 tribes of Israel, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and natives. And you're forcing them to learn Asian history. But not only are you forcing them to learn Asian history, that's a topic that we're going to touch on. Just give me a second down the line. I'm getting to that right there. But you're forcing the majority of the people in this city who has no ties to this history, you're forcing them to learn a history that really has no history in the United States. And when I say have no history, what did the Asians contribute to the United States that deems them to have a class that be taught? What can you teach about the Asians that they did here in the United States, or they contributed to the United States? Because if I'm not mistaken, everything that they wrote up about the Asians back just before Pearl Harbor, right, was a lot of propaganda. You understand what I'm saying? So the same propaganda that we learn about white American history, is that the same propaganda we're going to learn about Asian American history? I believe so. You understand what I'm saying? Remember how they used to always say that the Asians were smart at this and smart at that, and then you found out that they was killing themselves and committing suicide because they had so much pressure put on them. One of the Asians just talked about that a couple of months ago. How they had so much pressure because the picture that they made of them wasn't real, and everybody expected them to exceed and go past everybody else, but it wasn't happening. You understand what I'm saying? Go ahead. You got more on that? Or is that it?
I looked up how many Asians actually fought in the Civil War. This is the war to bring about America.
Right.
So if anybody is interested in that, a total of 50 Chinese Americans fought, and this is on both sides.
Right.
So this is, and I'm gonna bring this up online. We need this online so we can see.
Salakia, sir, if I may.
It's online. Total, there was about 50 Chinese Americans that fought on both sides. So it wasn't 50 that fought on
lot of times, you know, we find out a lot of them brothers and sisters was in offices writing up paperwork, and I'm wondering, were they actually on the war field, or were they just doing menial jobs? You understand what I'm saying? I'm not asking you to look that up, but I question that. You understand what I'm saying? Because if 50 of them was fighting, how many of them made it out of the war?
They said a handful actually received pension benefits. So out of the 50 that fought on both sides,
Right.
there was a handful that got actual benefits for actually fighting.
So a handful. So the other ones was in the offices writing up paperwork and all that other. Because I can't see a bunch of Asians out there fighting for something that ain't got nothing to do with them.
You know, you're talking about 40,000 blacks that had escaped from the South and joined the army to fight
Right.
for America.
Along with the other 50,000 that was already there. You know? You talking about 50. What is that, like that's a spark? A spark compared to a forest fire?
I don't know if they could even drive a Jeep with that many
People with it, right.
Supply one company with that many people. I don't know.
They couldn't even supply a dorm with that. You understand what I'm saying? And my thing is they making all of these bills, like I said, right, under the measure of Governor J.B. Pritzker signed into law Friday. He signed this into law, and it's important that you remember Governor J.B. Pritzker signed into law Friday. Every public elementary and high school in the state will be required to include a unit of history of Asian American and Pacific Islanders, including in the history of Illinois and the Midwest. Like I said, if this sets off properly, then it's going to spread throughout the United States, and everybody in the United States will be required to learn Asian American history. State Representative Jennifer Gong Gershowitz, remember that name, a Glenview Democrat, on one of 5 Asian Americans in the Illinois legislature. Hear that? One of 5 Asian Americans in the Illinois legislature said during a bill signing ceremony at Now West High School that she didn't learn about the Chinese Exclusion Act and her grandparents' struggles with discrimination and the fear of deportation until she was in law school. Because why didn't you learn about it? Because it really wasn't. It wasn't important. You understand what I'm saying? To be deported back to your own country, where you came from, where you probably, what do they call it? Illegal. You was an illegal immigrant. They should have been. They should have been in fear. You understand? Struggles with discrimination. Discrimination. I can't even see the word discrimination coming out of their mouth after what they put us through. After what we go through every day, and we still going through it today. You understand what I'm saying? Asian Americans don't have to come on CNN and disown their people. You understand? But we see time after time after time, our people have to come on there and disown us and say we have nothing to do with that. You understand what I'm saying? Go ahead, hit me with a bit of history.
Racial and ethnic groups played an important essential role in both armies during the Civil War. Many black soldiers fought for the North, enraging Southerners on the battlefield.
Right.
Hispanic soldiers fought on both sides. American Indians acted as scouts and guides,
Right.
helping to regain land and freedom for America. Look, our people were the ones that fought for the land and freedom of America,
Right.
but never can participate in the spoils that are divvied up for America.
Exactly.
How in the hell does Asians get into the conversation at all?
Right.
They didn't fight in the Civil War.
No.
They didn't fight for this country. They didn't fight in any war since.
Right.
They didn't fight in World War I and World War II for America.
Right.
They fought the
Chinese and the Japanese. Exactly.
They made allies for America to enrich their country.
Right.
They didn't fight for this country, the freedoms of this country.
Right.
But yet and still, they have obtained the spoils. And what are the spoils? They have gained the businesses and opportunities of black people.
Right.
And have been able to pass black communities down generations
Right.
as spoils and as inheritance.
And that's
How the hell can you have a whole black community that is an inheritance? The Chinese people who come from the other side of the goddamn world. It's disgusting. It's filthy. It's foul. It is a freaking disgusting goddamn understatement of what white America has done to black people in this country. To give us off to the Chinese after you used and exploited us for 400 years. Now you give us to your allies to exploit.
right. And that's terrible. Now, you learning about Asian American history, right? It's going to be forced down your throat, right? Now, I want to get to critical race theory, right? I want you to hear this. And this article is by Prentice Smith. This is one of our brothers. This is one of our brothers wrote this article. You understand what I'm saying? And it says critical race theory is not being taught in schools, nor should it be. He's saying that it shouldn't be. You understand what I'm saying? Now listen, critical race theory is not being taught in public schools, nor should it be. But black history should be taught. So now let me ask a question. What is critical race theory? What's critical race theory? I got the definition. I mean, you can look up the definition, but basically, let's get the definition first. Because what it is our oppressor uses words to make it seem like, you understand, it's a bigger thing than it really is. Critical race theory is true American history, and it's American history of how they created laws to keep us stagnant, to keep us in a box, to keep us from, I'm gonna give you an example of critical race theory, right? Here we go. Critical race theory, Kawan, know I talk about this one all the time. Critical race theory is the doctrine of exclusion, okay? This was a law created to keep black people from inheriting any kind of land or wealth or generational wealth in the United States. The doctrine of exclusion was collectively written by Maryland Colony Council in 1638, and it states the following: neither the existing black population, their descendants, nor any other black shall be permitted to enjoy the fruits of white society. That's a law that still stands today. That's critical race theory. Basically, what they're trying to say is that in pre-K all the way up to the 12th grade, it should not be taught. Now, why shouldn't it be taught? What they're saying is it shouldn't be taught because they want to think that our people won't understand it, or it's supposed to be college academic. That's what they put on it, college academic. But what it is it's real history and talks about how they really place laws in place to keep us at bay. understand? And if young kids hear this, what are they going to do? Rebel. You understand what I'm saying? And they're going to call for something new. This is the whole point. You got the definition? Salak, yes sir, you got the definition? You want to read it? Okay, because this brother right here, and this is the problem with our people, and this is a Maccabees, First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 11, brother, right here. You understand what I'm saying? I'm gonna grab that scripture, First Maccabees, chapter 1. Verse 11. Go ahead with the definition.
What is critical race theory and why is it under attack? Is critical race theory a way of understanding how American racism has shaped public policy, or a divisive discourse that pits people of color against white people?
Right.
Liberals and conservatives are in sharp disagreement. The topic has exploded in the public arena this spring, especially in K-12, where numerous state legislatures are debating bills seeking to ban its use in the classroom. In truth, the divides are not nearly as neat as they may seem. The events of the last decade have increased public awareness about things like housing segregation,
Right.
the impacts of criminal justice policy in the 90s, and the legacy of enslavement of Black Americans. But there is much less consensus on what the government's role should be in righting these past wrongs.
Right.
Add children in schooling into the mix, and the debate becomes especially volatile. School boards, superintendents, even principals, and teachers are already facing questions about critical race theory. And there are significant disagreements, even among experts, about its presence, definition, as well as how its tenets should inform K-12 policy and practice. This explainer is meant only as a starting point to help educators grasp core aspects of the current debate. Just what is critical race theory anyway? Critical race theory is an academic concept that is more than 40 years old. The core idea is that race is a special construct, and that racism is not merely the product of individual bias and prejudice, but also something embedded in legal systems and policies. The basic tenets of critical race theory, or CRT, emerged out of the framework for legal analysts in the late 1970s and the early 1980s, created by legal scholars Derek Bell, Kimberly Crawshaw, and Richard Delgado, among others. A good example is when in the 1930s government officials literally draw lines around areas deemed poor financial risks, which were Black, often explicitly due to racial composition of inhabitants. Banks subsequently refused to offer mortgages to Black people in those areas.
Listen, check this out, right? Basically, like you said, it's laws that were created to keep us in place, to keep us from advancing, to keep us at the bay of every other nation that comes into our neighborhoods and feeds off of us. You understand what I'm saying? What nation does not benefit off the spoils of us? You understand? Every nation benefits off of us because of critical race theory. And because the reason why they don't want to teach critical race theory in free school, which is what I'm going to call it, from K all the way to 12, because you don't have to pay for it, right? And if you learn something that's the truth that you don't have to pay for, you understand what I'm saying? You're going to use that information to your discretion. But if you got to go all the way to college, you got to get a law degree, and you got to pay $250,000 after you get out, you're going to be looking for a job that's going to pay you enough money to pay off that loan. So you're not going to come up against the oppressor's laws and stipulations. You understand what I'm saying? Critical race thinking is the truth. Critical race theory is truth about American history against the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and natives. You understand? Now this brother right here, this is our brother, this is a brother. His name is Prentice Smith. Critical race theory is not being taught in public schools, nor should it be. But black history should be taught. What is black history? Black history is that Martin Luther King went and marched for us and all of that. Everything that smooths over real history. Everything that makes it nice and easy and palatable to our oppressor. You understand? Everything that makes it easy to go down. Everything that makes it acceptable. Christianity, all of that. You understand? African American history is our oppressor's customs and culture. It's not real black history. It says black history was not taught in schools, which was a travesty, and it was short-sighted. The whitewashing of history was not only bad for black students, but it was bad for white students who were not given the opportunity to know and learn about the totality of American history. They learn about the totality of their history. They know all the lines. You understand? Critical race theory is an academic college level course. And you see what they're saying? This is a brother saying this, that we should not learn it unless we go to law school and pay to learn it. But like I said, by the time you do all of that, you're thinking about paying off a loan. You ain't thinking about saving your people, because you can easily get blackballed. You can easily get disbarred by any means necessary, how they do us. You understand what I'm saying? It says, by definition, it is an intellectual movement that studies the intersection of law and race. It is a complicated, deep divide into race, and there's nothing complicated about it. It's just the truth. But when something is hard to speak about, it makes it complicated. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And it has no place in public schools. Why doesn't it have a place in public schools? Because black people might learn their real history. They might learn about where they really come from, or why they were really brought here, or what's really going on. You understand what I'm saying? Think about it, right? If critical race theory wasn't important, why don't we have our own banks? Why don't we have our own schools? You understand? Why don't we own any electric companies? Why don't we own any water companies to provide to our own people? Why are we the only people in this nation that's not providing for our own people? You understand what I'm saying? We the only people in this nation that does not have our own communities. You understand? They call them urban communities, but everybody and their mama owns everything in our communities but us. You understand? And this is why critical race theory is important. In law, it says complicated, deep divide into race, culture, and law, and it has no place in public schools. Those public schools should teach black history because it is a part of American history. And this is a brother right here that has been Americanized. You understand? He is married to the culture. You understand? and he has no love for his own people. You understand? All children should be exposed to the totality of American history. So if all children should be exposed to the totality of American history, then we should be learning about critical race theory. You understand? Not the whitewashed and sanitized version that was taught in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Well, the stuff that was taught in the 50s, 60s, and 70s was being taught in the 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s. It's still being taught. You understand? And with that, I'm gonna pass the class over to Priest Officer Kawan Palak. Should be the one with the first one. Okay. Got it?
Security announcement. You know the Isupkbmore out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commanding General Yahana. New rules for brothers and sisters. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are able to share themselves of the world. After 6 months, if a brother or a sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There is another 6 months in which a brother or sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother or sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithe, which is a commandment. You can find this in Numbers 18:21 and Malachi 3:8-10. It means 10th in the Hebrew, and is pronounced Ma'asharah, 10% of every penny of any increase that the Most High gives you. Give to the Treasury Department or teacher. Priest fund. Free will offering for priests. Now, add to it whatsoever amount you would like to give. Up the holy congregation. You might not give it, and I'll be able to check on social media, such as Isupkbmore.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and so on for Isupkbmore events and materials. If a brother wants to be a trooper in the school, he has to start wearing all black, which includes black boots, shirts, pants, headband, and scarf. One courtesy salute to the teacher in Israel. I advise you Shabbat. I advise you, bruh. How about Shimon Shabbat?
How about Shimon Shabbat?
That's the time. Where's this?
The world got fixed, picked up a bag, the hand that's a red bird from a fresh